Welcome to the Belief Breakthrough Show, where we believe that you can achieve the life you dream of simply through shifting your perspective and breaking through your limiting beliefs. With your host, Tina Encarnacion, the author of Stuck in the Fire, a story of resilience, trauma and abuse coach, an energy healer, and Reiki master. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in again to another episode of the Belief Breakthrough Show, where we believe that simply by shifting your perspective and beliefs, you can have anything you want in life. My name is Tina Encarnacion. I am your host, the author of Stuck in the Fire, a story of resilience, as well as a trauma and abuse coach and a Reiki energy healing master and teacher. Today, we have Tiffany on our show, and you guys, we are so blessed to have this woman. I am so excited to have her as a guest on my show. I saw her at a summit that I attended, and she literally changed my life on the way that your brain operates and just your belief system in general. So you guys, Tiffany is a world-renowned international speaker. She is a leading expert on rewriting the unconscious mind for success and tapping into your personal potential. She has over 20 years exploring the brain and the mind and teaching people how to do things. She has educated and transformed the lives of thousands of people across the world. She is the author of Stop Being a Selfish Bitch, a comprehensive guide to living your best life through radical self-love, and is a top-rated self-help book author. You guys, we are so lucky to have her on this show. Please drop your comments, drop your questions. Let us know what you think about her presentation today. Tiffany, if you don't mind, I can talk about you till I'm blue in the face, but no one can talk about you better than yourself. So I'm going to turn the stage over to you, and please tell us about how you got into this, what you've been through in your life, what made you become an NLP practitioner and an author, and just take the stage.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Tina. And I might have to hire you to be my hype woman after that one. That was an awesome intro. So, I've been in the coaching industry for 20 years. So I started out in health and fitness, and it was a way for me to figure out how to feel good about myself by helping other people feel comfortable in their own skin. And I came to realize in my 20s, so I started when I was like 14, I came to realize in my 20s that if I actually wanted to feel good in my skin, then I had to do the work. I couldn't just fix other people. So to kind of give you some background, my story starts quite young. My mom left my biological dad when I was 3 months old because he was mentally abusive. I have reason to believe there was some physical abuse too, but she's never said anything to that level. And when I was 3 years old, he started dating a woman who would become my stepmom. Now, I never liked spending weekends with him. They literally had to carry me to the car kicking and screaming. And then, he would go to the store and buy me Barbies or whatever to like quiet me down. But there was always like an off energy about him. And even then I was highly empathic and could pick up on this. And I, from a very young age, became a pawn in his game with my mom. So he would give me photos of him at my mom's wedding and tell me to take it home and put it on the fridge. Meanwhile, my mom's remarried to my incredible stepdad, who I'm so blessed to have in my life. So he would tell me, my biological dad would tell me to take these photos home and put them on the fridge. And I didn't know any better. So I would. I'm like 2 and 3 at the time. So I would do that. And then my mom would explain to me how much that hurt my stepdad's feelings. And I wouldn't get in trouble, but it was a very clear, like, stop doing this, you're hurting somebody. So from the age of about 3, I became hypersensitive to how my actions would make other people feel. And I started adjusting how I felt about situations to not hurt other people. Then my biological dad met my stepmom. She was a domestic violence survivor, was actually living in a women's shelter when they met. So when they met, he would pick me up. We would go to this like hideous, dusty, rose pinky building. It was disgusting to look at. And this was before the days of cell phones, and he couldn't go in because he was a man. So he would send me in. So as this little 3-year-old girl, I'm being sent into a women's shelter. So one of my first memories of what it was to be a woman was learning from these women who were at the lowest point in their life. And so for a really long time, I believed that it was dangerous to be a woman and that it was like a weakness. And so for the first like 25 years of my life, I really like shunned anything feminine, like hated pink, just for the sake of like, it was feminine. She quickly ended up moving in with him, and that's when the abuse started. So it started being locked in closets and burned with curling irons. And then after years of grooming me and telling me that strangers hated blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls, which I am, and they would kill them if they saw them. She, one day when I was putting on a play in the backyard for my cousins, scooped me up, put me into the car, drove me to the outskirts of the city, and told me she was going to leave me there for a stranger to come and do whatever they wanted with. She was done dealing with me. And so at 7 years old, I begged for my life. And it was really at that point that I started to realize that it was unsafe to stand out, that anytime the spotlight naturally fell on me, I was in danger. And so I went into like this shell where I didn't speak out. Nobody, I hid in every situation that I could find. When I was 10, they then moved to the other side of the country. I saw them one more time. I went to a family reunion with them. And on the way home from the family reunion, I'd been away from my mom for 2 weeks, and that was the longest at any point in time in my life. And it was the only time coming home that I got car sick, and the car was starting to break down. So my biological dad pulls over on the side of the road. He's got the hood up. He's looking, and I'm there because I'm sitting in the middle seat, and I feel like I'm about to vomit, and I don't know how I'm going to get out of this car. And she turns around and looks at me and says, "If you don't stop crying right now, I'll make sure you never see your mom and dad again and your brothers." And then she called my mom. We were about 3 hours away from where my parents lived. She said, "You have an hour and a half to come and get her. Otherwise, you'll never see her again." And my stepdad, like, I don't even know what speeds he would have had to hit to get there in time, but he got there just in time to get me before they just left with me and disappeared with me. So I didn't want to be this girl with like daddy issues. I didn't want to be this girl who had stuff. Mm-hmm. And part of me was like, but it didn't happen all the time. It happened on like every second weekend, right? There's all these other kids that you see on TV that are, being horribly abused. So it wasn't that bad. And that was how I justified it for so long in my life. But by doing that, and a lot of people do this, and I'm sure you've seen this, is that people are like, but it wasn't that bad. Like it was just one time, or but I wasn't being beaten black and blue, or I wasn't being sexually abused, or whatever it is. And we justify the trauma that we have faced as a way of attempting to deal with it. But what that does is we don't realize how it then shows up in our life. So for me, it really showed up in my friendships and my relationships. I became a doormat where I had no boundaries. I was like a total people pleaser. And then the other side of it was I was trying to prove that I was good enough to be my stepdad's daughter. He had 2 more kids with my mom, so my half brothers. And so I was trying to prove that I was good enough. Now, he obviously had his own stuff. He had a mom and sisters who were highly codependent, and he didn't want me to be like that. So growing up, he would brag about me to everybody else, but would never tell me that he loved me and was proud of me. And that was the one thing that I was seeking. So I became this like overachieving perfectionist, but still felt like I was never good enough. So fast forward to my 20s, I moved to Australia after college. I'm, trying to figure out who I am, end up in a relationship, in it for 3 years. We put an offer in on a block of land. He's talking about how he's saving for a ring. And the day I found out I'm pregnant, fall pregnant. And that same day I find out he actually has a girlfriend in another state. So he tells me he's away on a work trip. He's actually away with this woman for the weekend. And my entire life fell apart. And then in the weeks coming, I found out that he was actually a compulsive liar. So when we put the offer in on a block of land, I was like, if they accept this offer, I have no idea how we're going to pay for it because we don't have any money. At that time, I was paying most of the bills. because I thought I was making most of the money. And he said, well, I've been saving. I've got $50,000 in a bank account. I was like, no, you don't. Like, you definitely do not. Yeah. He's like, but I've been doing it because I wanted to buy you your dream house, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, you don't. Stop lying to me. He forged a bank statement. I kid you not. Like, this thing looked legit. I went over it almost with a magnifying glass, but it looked legit, total fake. So, he was a compulsive liar. So I'm humiliated living by myself in Australia, don't have the money to come home to see my family. And then I have a miscarriage. I can't eat or sleep for 2 weeks. My body goes, this is not the time. Miscarry the baby, hit a whole new emotional low that I didn't even know existed. And at that time, I could not see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I had not told anybody I was pregnant. I was so humiliated about the cheating and the lying. I hadn't told anybody about the pregnancy. So I didn't tell anybody about the miscarriage. And so I was pretending life was normal, pretending, let's just go about life. And I walked out of a business meeting on a Friday afternoon, downtown Melbourne, so a city of 5-6 million people. So there's people everywhere. It's loud. There's traffic. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I literally don't know how I can continue putting one foot in front of the other. And I saw this taxi coming and I thought, that's my way out. I just it'll look like an accident. I just take one well-timed step, but I don't have to feel this anymore. And that was all I could think about, was not feeling this pain. And so I went to take the step and my body was like, my legs were rooted to the ground. Call it divine intervention, whatever. I could not move. And it was in that moment, as the taxi passed, that I realized what I had almost just done and that I needed to make some change. So I sought out a therapist, went to therapy for about 6 months. And she was like, well, so don't you feel so much better now? And I was like, no, literally, all the stuff that I had carefully vacuum sealed down somewhere that I could never touch it again has all been opened up. Yeah. It's floating on the surface. And she was like, well, you just need to talk to more people about it. So go home and tell your mom and dad. So I did. And this just reactivated that whole, I have to protect other people from their feelings, because my mom and my stepdad have suffered from depression and anxiety my entire life. So my mom went into this huge depressive swing where she felt so much guilt for not knowing. And then my stepdad, who I love him, and when it comes to emotions, he's a very simple man. So he was like, how is this even true? Not that he ever didn't believe me, but he just didn't understand how I could have kept it a secret for 28 years. And so he was like, I don't get this. And then, my brothers were like, you had a good childhood. You shouldn't make mom and dad feel bad because this stuff happened to you. You had a good childhood. And I'm like, I never said I didn't. I'm just saying that there was a shadow cast over my childhood. And so that just really made things worse. So a friend invited me to a personal development event. I went, lots of rah, loud music, dancing, felt really good when you're there. Then you leave and you're like, I'm all lonely all of a sudden. So I kept seeking that feeling of when we were there. So I spent thousands and thousands of dollars on more and more courses with them. Nothing changed. I just got more loud music and dancing. And overachieved at all their events, but still nothing happened. And so then I sought out a life coach and I said, look, I have this stuff from my past and I need to deal with it because it's going to kill me if I don't. And the overwhelming response that I got from coach after coach was, well, you can't deal with the past. You can't change the past. So let's just focus on the future. And I was like, I've literally done that. So that ultimately led me to NLP, which is what I do now. And I have the pleasure of helping other people heal and transform their minds so that they don't have to go through that. That was a really long, sorry, I didn't realize it took that long.
No, it was really good for us to realize what you've been through and everything that you tried and what didn't work for you and what did work for you, because so many people are just like you, where they're out there and they're searching and they're searching and they're searching. I had similar stories where I had my parent issues too, but I just stuffed it and ran. And I just figured, hey, if I just stay busy, I don't have to deal with it. So I was working 3-4 jobs, literally. I would work from the time I woke up to the time I went to sleep, and I would work until I fell asleep at work. Like it just so I wouldn't have to deal with it. When I lost my daughter, I got out of the hospital after losing her, and I went back to work the next day because I was like, I don't have to deal with it. If I just keep busy, I don't have to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And so I completely understand like going through those different channels and like nothing's working. Nothing's working. Yeah. And so it wasn't until I met an NLP coach, life coach that did practice NLP, that really started to shift my mindset. And so I know NLP works because I'm a different woman today. And so, but it's good for people to see, like, if it's not working for you, it's not you. It's not you. There's other channels. And so thank you for sharing that story with us, because I think that a lot of people can relate to it. Now, when I saw you on that summit, you amazed me because you took such a huge concept and you broke it down to bite-sized pieces. And I was like, something in my brain clicked, and I was like, oh my God, I get it now. So if you could explain to us how your subconscious works based on your consciousness, and how your consciousness and your subconscious, they kind of play against each other. I feel like, in a way. So you can describe it better than I can. I'm not a world-renowned NLP practitioner. So.
Yeah. So ideally, like, the ultimate goal is to get them working together. But for most people, because they're programming themselves wrong, and not through any fault of their own, they're programming them based on the way that they've been taught, which is totally wrong. That's why they kind of get pitted against each other. And in that case, Freud was right. The unconscious is this dark thing that's, working against us, but it really wants us to have everything that we want. So we've essentially got these two aspects to the mind. We've got the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. If you were to think of them like an iceberg, the conscious mind is the part of the iceberg above the water. It's what we see. Right. And I think people have probably seen enough iceberg memes to kind of know what I talk about. The bulk of it's underneath. So the conscious mind is everything that you're aware of. It's that light of awareness. So as you're listening to Tina's incredible show, and episode after episode, you have these like, wow, this show's so amazing. I know so-and-so who needs to hear this show. I'm going to share it with them. I never thought of things that way. That's your conscious mind talking. The unconscious mind is the part of the iceberg below the water. So it's where the bulk of the iceberg sits. And your unconscious mind runs your body. So your heart rate, your hormones, your digestive system, where blood is going, right? If you're in a stress, fight or flight state, or more of a rest and digest parasympathetic state, that's all your unconscious mind. But your unconscious mind also stores your belief systems, both good and bad. And for people listening, 95% of the belief systems you have now as an adult were planted in your mind before the age of 7, so between 0 and 7. And so we typically have these limiting beliefs created between 0 and 7, and then we just keep playing them out for the rest of our life until we do something like listen to a podcast or go to a summit that shifts our perspective, and then we follow up on, coaching or NLP or whatever. So it has our belief systems, our emotions. All of our emotions come from the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind has zero capacity for logic and reason. There's no reason there. It's 100% emotional. And then our memories. So if we think about dating somebody, for example, and we're like, I've dated somebody who's blonde before, and that had a negative, that person cheated on me or whatever, then that becomes connected in the brain, like blonde equals cheating, even though not all blondes cheat, or, not all whatever, but that's how we kind of stereotype people, as it happens in that unconscious mind. And it can be like a super small, oh, they have blue eyes, or, they have high cheekbones or whatever. So the unconscious mind is very symbolic, and it creates associations very, very quickly. But the associations are not ever really based on logic and reason. So most people think that the conscious mind is in control because it's our logic and reason. But if the conscious and unconscious mind were on a road trip together, the unconscious mind is the one driving the car. That is what is in control of our life. In fact, 96% of our mind's capacity is unconscious, and only 4% of our mind is conscious. So the conscious mind is like the backseat driver, like, hey, you should do this. But ultimately, it's the conscious mind that's driving the car. So we are emotional beings. We make all of our decisions based on emotion, and then we back it up with logic and reason. So as long as we're carrying trauma, or we're carrying limiting beliefs, or we're carrying negative emotions, we will instantly seek pleasure and avoid pain. And so we'll do that without any regard for the future. So the more trauma we have, the more limiting beliefs, the more negative emotion that pushes us down into our lower mind. So almost into like our brain stem, like that survival mind. And we'll seek pleasure now. So for you, what you just said, going to work right after you lost your daughter, that was a way of pleasure, like seeking pleasure, because you were avoiding pain, right? You didn't have to feel the pain. So that meant even if it didn't feel great, it was still better than what you would have felt. This is what happens with emotional eating, with any sort of addiction, is we're chasing that instant gratification now so that we don't have to deal with it. As we start to heal and we start to reprogram these limiting beliefs, we start to heal the trauma and let go of the negative emotions. That allows us to move up into our higher mind, which means we can access more of our logic and reason, which means that we can think, okay, if I don't eat this tub of ice cream now, I'm going to look awesome in my bikini when I go to Mexico at Christmas, or whatever it is, right? So we have more capacity for this delayed gratification.
Thank you for explaining it so easy and clear and crisp. And so now that we understand that the way the subconscious and conscious work, how do you go from having them work against each other to shifting or changing the way that we think or process to where they can work together?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when we set goals, or we're like, I really want this thing, or I really want this dream, whatever it is, that's coming from the conscious mind. Where they work against each other is if we have a limiting belief that does not allow us to have that thing. So one of the most common limiting beliefs that there is around money, right? We've kind of been programmed that money is evil, that money is bad, blah, blah, blah. You have to work hard to make money, any of these sorts of things.
Yeah.
So then if you have a goal that requires you to have money, let's say you have a goal to be able to travel 6 months of the year. Well, you're going to have money coming in, right? Firstly, money is going to have to be easy to make. You're going to have some sort of residual income, and you're going to have to make quite a bit of it. So what then happens is you have this, I want this, the 4% of the mind saying, I want this, and the 96% saying it's evil. So the 4% may win a couple battles, but it's never going to win the war. And so what we have to do is we have to reprogram those belief systems so that you can get what you want. So I tell people, most people focus on the behavior that's not serving them, right? I need to work harder. I need to work out more. I need to eat less crappy food. When in reality, the behaviors won't fully change and they won't fully stick until we deal with the belief systems. So your behaviors are just a symptom of your belief system. If you have a behavior that's not working for you, there's a belief system that is driving that behavior. So when we go into the unconscious mind, there's a part called the reticular activating system. And I like to think of this as like the GPS that's in your phone, right? So I'm going on a road trip to my in-laws today. And so if I was to pick up my phone and I put in somebody else's address, let's say I put in my friend's address, and it takes me to my friend's house, and I'm like, but this isn't where I want to go. That's how most people live their life. They're putting the wrong address into their phone because their limiting beliefs won't allow them to put the address of where they want. So when we talk, you can start reprogramming things like on your own. Obviously, working with a coach speeds up the process, but you can start to do some things on your own. So firstly, become aware of the things that you say. Anytime you say the words I or I am, whatever comes after that, you are programming yourself with. So if you are constantly saying I'm broke, right? You're telling your reticular activating system that you're broke. And whatever goes into the reticular activating system is what it seeks more of. So if you say, I'm broke, then your reticular activating system goes, okay, we need to find more broke, right? So you'll find more ways to stay broke. Whereas if you say, my financial situation isn't great right now and it's changing, then you're programming yourself to look for different opportunities of how to change it. If someone comes to you and they're like, let's say you want to sign up with a coach like Tina, and Tina tells you her rates and you're like, I can't afford that. That just closes it down. Like the unconscious mind just goes, okay, we're closing this chapter. This isn't happening. Whereas if you start to ask yourself, how can I make this happen? Then you start to find ways. You actually open up the filters of the mind. So instead of being blinders like this, like, nope, this definitely isn't happening, I can't see anything, then you're opening those filters up to look for opportunities to get what it is that you want. And then the last thing is to be aware of, most people tend to focus on what they don't want. So everything we've said today, people have gotten a picture in their mind. So when I talked about my childhood, they got a picture of that happening in their mind. Whatever that picture is that goes into the reticular activating system, as I said, is what it goes after. So people will come to me, and I'm sure you've had this experience as well, and we're talking about goals, and you say, well, what is it that you want? When I worked in the fitness industry, the number one thing I would hear was like, I don't want to be fat. I don't want to be unhealthy. Well, you've just put pictures of being fat and unhealthy into your mind because your unconscious mind is unable to process the word not. So if I say, don't think of a purple frog, what picture did you just get?
A purple frog.
Yeah. So many people focus on what they don't want. And what we need to do is shift that to focusing on what you do want. So don't say, I want to get out of debt. Say, I want to make $10 million or $10,000 or whatever it is, right? Whatever you focus on expands. And so start paying attention to your language and the words that you use, because that's ultimately what you're programming yourself to go out and find.
So are there any exercises, or how would you, for the person that has never had a coach, has never heard of NLP, is in victim mode, is stuck in despair?
Mm-hmm.
What top 3 things could they do on their own to start shifting those limiting belief systems out? I know you said focus on words, but is there like any daily exercises they can do?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any specific routines? Like, what would you suggest for them to start shifting their mind so that they can begin to acquire what they desire?
Absolutely. I like that. So number one, my favorite thing to do is visualizations. It's super easy. You can either create a vision board, or you can just like play a movie in your head, vision it and visualize it. This is really powerful because most people think, oh, I have to see it to believe it, which means it has to happen in real life for me to believe it. Your unconscious mind doesn't need to see it in real life. That's your conscious mind giving you excuses. So if you can see something in your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between fiction and reality. So what it does is, if I can see you having a successful coaching business, or if I can picture myself in my mind on stage in front of 10,000 people, or I just print out a picture from the internet of like a crowd and I'm standing in front of it, that tells my unconscious mind that it's possible. So to start programming yourself to seek out these opportunities, start visualizing it. And people don't often talk about this. The most powerful way to visualize is to actually see yourself in the picture. So instead of like, let's say you're getting your dream car, instead of seeing yourself in the driver's seat driving, so you see your hands and the steering wheel and the dashboard and the windshield, picture yourself riding shotgun. So you look over and you see yourself, because our unconscious mind also doesn't know the difference between now and the future. So if I visualize through my own eyes, then my unconscious mind goes, oh, well, I've already got that thing, and it stops taking action. Again, there's no logic and reason there. If I see myself in the picture, then what happens is it tells my unconscious mind that it's possible and I don't have it yet. So it'll start seeking out the opportunities to make that happen. So number 1 is visualization. Number 2, drop the word try from your vocabulary. The most important word to pay attention to is the word try. What the word try means is a feeble attempt. So you tell yourself and other people that you're not going to fully commit, that you're not going to go all in on this thing. And you actually give yourself an excuse to fail before you even start. If somebody comes to you and says, well, I thought you were going to make $1 million this year. No, I said I was going to try and make $1 million, right? So you have this excuse to fail. So either do fully commit or don't commit at all. So drop the word try. That's number 2. And I would say number 3 is to start journaling. Check in with yourself every single day, see how you're feeling, reward yourself for the wins, even if it's like a tiny step forward. Your unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between moving an inch forward and a mile forward. All it knows is that you've made forward progress. And so those mini milestones, like really celebrate them, write them down, share them with people, get excited about them, because that will encourage you to go out and take that action again tomorrow.
I love all of those. Those are so awesome. I swear I'm like totally fangirling you right now.
Thank you.
Okay, so for the last question, what are 3 golden nuggets that you could give to our viewers? And I feel like you kind of just did, but I know you've got more in there. So 3 golden nuggets that you can give to our viewers to start taking action today in shifting their limiting beliefs and reopening their subconscious mind to work with their conscious mind and achieve results.
Yeah. So I would say the first thing to know, this is more of a knowing, and come back to this knowing anytime that you're getting frustrated, is that the journey of change and reprogramming is a rabbit hole. I jumped in thinking I'd come out the other side shiny. And you'll definitely notice the progress you're making. And this is a lifelong journey. It's kind of like a road trip from New York to California. When you're driving through those like typical flyover states, today we're driving to Kentucky, so we're going to drive through Arkansas. And my husband's always like, I just wish we could fly through this state. And I'm like, this is an important part of the journey though. And those, when you're driving through North Dakota, or you're driving through, those quote unquote boring states, I think they're all beautiful in their own way, but you're driving through those states, you would never on a road trip turn around and go back to New York and say, well, I'm not getting to California, so I'm just going to go back. Right. But people do this with their journey of change. They start taking action. They expect to see the results in a week or 2. And then when they don't get there, they go, well, I'm just going to go back to what I was doing. Every time you go back to what you were doing before, it sets you like, you're now starting from like out in the Atlantic, not from New York. You're like way out, and you're like driving from the UK now. Right. And so every time you go back, it just makes it that much harder for you to get started again. So just remember that this is a journey, and just to keep like one day at a time, just move forward. Second thing is surround yourself with people who are going to help you get there. I cannot tell you how important a tribe is. And social media has been really powerful for me personally. The people that have supported me the most on my journey have been people I've never met live in person, but people I met on the internet. Your friends and family are likely not going to be instant supporters unless they've already gone on the journey themselves. The reason being that they make up your average. If you've ever heard that, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. They make up your average, but you also make up theirs. So when you start growing and changing and stepping outside of your comfort zone, you start dragging their average up and pulling them out of their comfort zone. It's one thing to consciously make the decision to step outside of your comfort zone. It's another thing to be dragged out of it. And when we are dragged out of it, we go into a state of fight or flight. So when they start saying things like, now is not the right economy to start a business, or, are you sure about this? This will never work. I think that you should stick with the safe job, or whatever it is. That's them talking from a place of fight or flight. It has literally nothing to do with you. So make sure that you have a tribe of people that you can go to who will support you, because they're already out of their comfort zone. They're used to doing that, whatever it is. There are a ton of Facebook groups. We've got one that you can join as well if you'd like to, but we love to help people celebrate in that group. It doesn't matter how big or how small the win is. We love to help people celebrate. So the tribe is definitely an important part of the journey. And number 3 is rest is critical. People underestimate rest. We are not made to be machines. Nothing in nature grows 24/7, and we are a part of nature. So to think that we're different is very delusional and conceited. So get some rest, right? After every growth period, in order for your brain to physically rewire, which it does, after listening to this podcast, your brain wants to physically rewire. That rewiring happens as you sleep. So, or in a period of deep rest. So either meditation, yoga nidra, yin yoga, breath work, Reiki sessions, sleep. That's when the mind is going to start to rewire itself. So if you feel like you're not making progress, it's probably because you're not giving yourself enough sleep.
Those are all awesome. Valid. Yes. I love so many times after I give someone a Reiki session, they're like, I'm so tired right now. I was like, you need to go take a nap. Like you need to just let your body reset. There's a reason. They're like, I just woke up from a nap. It doesn't matter. Go sleep.
Yeah.
Let it happen. Let it take place.
Yeah.
My gosh, rest is definitely, that's one thing that I tell my clients. They're like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm like, sleep 8 hours a night. That's your number one first goal. Sleep 8 hours a night so your brain can reset itself, heal, process everything it took in today, because that's why you need 8 hours. It doesn't do that in 3 hours. So anyways, that's like sleep is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll be overwhelmed.
And we live in a culture that's like, oh, who can get by on the least amount of sleep? And I'm like, you guys are all setting yourself up for failure. Like, we have a quitting circuit in the brain. And if we don't get enough sleep, that quitting circuit actually gets activated and you don't have any conscious control over that.
Nope. That's why they say, I'll sleep on it. Let me sleep on it, because you figure it out in your sleep. Your brain starts working.
Yeah.
So anyways, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people find you? Because I know everyone that's listening today wants to work with you, because I know I was like, where can I get a hold of her? And then I never had time. So I definitely am going to be connecting with you. You have once again reignited my spark of inspiration. So where can we find you?
Well, thank you. And so if you want to join our Facebook community, if you go to successsecretsgroup.com, there's like 3 S's in there at one point, successsecretsgroup.com. Join the community. I'm in there all the time. Then you can friend request me, shoot me a DM, whatever you need to do. The other place that's easy to find me is my website, bluelotusmind.com, and that'll connect you to all my socials. I've been neglecting my website, but I do have my podcast goes up there. But I do have a ton of new blog content coming soon as well. So
sweet. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of the Belief Breakthrough Show. I hope that you found this episode as impactful as I did. I am so grateful once again, Tiffany, for having you on the show. If you guys want to be involved in a group of people that are working on healing themselves, you can join our group, the Women Empowered to Heal, on Facebook, and tune in for more episodes every Monday and Wednesday night at 6 p.m. Thank you guys for listening once again. We'll talk to you guys soon.